It's July the 15th, 1499. You are standing inside the holiest city on earth, and it's on fire. The screaming started at dawn. Now, 6 hours later, the streets run with blood, and the smoke is so thick you can barely see the dome of the rock rising above you. The Crusaders have breached the walls, and the world. Your world will never be the same again. But to understand how you ended up on those walls, you need to understand what Jerusalem actually is. Quieter, not a city, a wound that never fully heals. For you living here, in the 11th century Jerusalem, is the center of the universe, literally. Medieval maps place it at the exact middle of the world. 3 religions have already bled for it. To Jews, this is the site of the Temple of Solomon, the holiest ground in existence, destroyed and yearned for across centuries of exile. To Christians, this is where Jesus was crucified, buried, and they believe softer rose from the dead. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands over that very spot. To Muslims, this is Al-Quds, the holy, the city where the Prophet Muhammad made his night journey to heaven, the 3rd holiest site in Islam. For 400 years before 1099, Jerusalem had been under Muslim rule, and for most of that time, gently Christian pilgrims were allowed in peacefully. It wasn't paradise, but it worked. Then the Seljuk Turks swept in from the east. Rome, to liberate a pope named Urban II, made a speech that would set the world on fire. In November 1095, you are in a field in Clermont, France, or you've heard what happened there from everyone who was. Pope Urban II stands before a vast crowd and delivers what may be the most consequential speech in medieval history. He tells the crowd that the holy sites of Jerusalem are in the hands of people who defile them. He calls for a military pilgrimage, an armed march to take the city back. He promises that anyone who dies on this journey will have their sins forgiven. The crowd erupts. Let them hear it. Deus vult. They shout, God wills it. Within months, somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 people, knights, farmers, priests, women, children, begin walking east. Not an army, a migration, a fever. This is the First Crusade, and it leaves a trail of devastation before it ever reaches the Holy Land. In the Rhine Valley of Germany, mobs turn on Jewish communities. Wait every word. Massacring thousands. In cities like Worms, Mainz, Speyer, the violence against Jews begins before the Crusaders ever see Jerusalem. That fact is rarely taught alongside the glory of the crusading ideal. The march takes 3 years. You cross mountains in winter without proper clothing. You fight the Seljuk Turks in Anatolia. You besiege Antioch for 8 months. Nearly starve. Then, miraculously they say, find a holy relic that restores morale. You lose half your number to disease, battle, desertion. By the time you reach the walls of Jerusalem in June 1099, you are a wreck of the force that left France. The summer heat is punishing. There is almost no water. The local wells have been poisoned or blocked by the city's defenders. For 5 weeks, you lay siege to walls that have repelled invaders for centuries. Then a priest named Peter Desiderius has a vision. March barefoot around the walls, he says, like Joshua at Jericho, and God will deliver the city. On July the 8th, thousands of starving, sunburned Crusaders take off their boots and walk around Jerusalem in the blazing heat. The Muslim defenders watch from the walls, almost to yourself, in disbelief. It doesn't look like an army, it looks like madness. 6 days later, July the 14th, the siege towers reach the walls. A young knight named Leopold of Tournai, according to the chronicles, is the first man over the battlements. By midday on July the 15th, the gates are open. What follows is one of the most documented massacres of the medieval era. The Crusaders kill for hours. The Jewish community who had gathered in their synagogue are burned alive inside it. The Muslim population, men, women, children, are slaughtered in the streets, in the mosques, on the Temple Mount itself. The chronicler Raymond of Aguilers, who was there, wrote that the blood in the Temple Mount reached the knees of the horses. The city had fallen. The Holy Land was liberated. And the word liberated would never mean the same thing to every person who heard it. But here is what the history books almost always leave out. Jerusalem did not stay Crusader for long, barely 88 years. In 1187, less than a century after the massacre, a Kurdish Muslim general named Saladin, whom you know as Saladin, retook the city. And here is what makes this moment extraordinary. Saladin did not massacre the Christian population. Let that land. He could have. His army had every precedent and every justification to answer the events of 1099 inches kind. He didn't. He ransomed the poor. He let the wealthy go. He personally guaranteed the safety of Christian pilgrims. He restored the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to Christian clergy. He reportedly wept when he saw how the Al-Aqsa Mosque had been used as a stable by the Crusaders. His own secretary recorded that Saladin's commanders begged him to demolish the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to erase it. Saladin refused. He said it wasn't the building that mattered to pilgrims, it was the ground beneath it. That decision to protect, rather than destroy, is why the Church of the Holy Sepulchre still stands today. Now here is the layer beneath that layer. The land you call Palestine deliberate, the land that today carries the weight of one of the most painful conflicts in the modern world, has been conquered and reconquered at least 34 times in recorded history by Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Crusaders, Mongols, Ottomans, British, and that is a short list. Every single one of them believed they had a righteous claim. The violence you witnessed in 1099 was not the beginning of this story, and the violence that has continued into your own lifetime is not the end of it. You might be thinking this happened 600 years ago. What does it have to do with you? Everything. Because the fall of Jerusalem, these were not isolated moments. They were chapters in a story that is still being written. The borders drawn and redrawn across the Holy Land over the last century, the Balfour Declaration of 1917, the Partition Plan of 1947, the Wars of 1948 and 1967, and every conflict since, are not new arguments. They are the latest chapter of the oldest argument in recorded history. Who does this ground belong to? And what Jerusalem has always answered in stone and blood and prayer is this: holiness is not ownership. 3 people have prayed here for over 1,000 years. The city has absorbed every empire that tried to hold it exclusively. None of them succeeded. All of them left their mark. That is the real history of the Holy Land. History is never simple, but it is never boring. Either, not when you know where to look. If this Vault spoke to you today, subscribe to Vault Off Ages. Every week we open a new door on a story the world half remembers and half forgot. Next time, we go somewhere, even older. And the secret buried there will genuinely change how you see the world. The vault is open. Come back.